Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Daily Word. Today is Tuesday, December 28th. Rapidly approaching the end of 2021. In some ways, it's good, I think, to turn the calendar to a new year. In other ways, we maybe are just never quite ready for what comes next and what will be calling to us. But either way, here we are. We gather this morning, kind of chilly out this morning, but glad you could join me for our few minutes together as we continue to explore our daily word together and what it might mean for us as we live our lives. So this morning, continue in the Gospel of Matthew. I said yesterday, that the wise men, the Magi, as Matthew calls them, aren't really part of the lectionary cycle this year. But I'm seemingly, for some reason this year, really drawn to the story of the wise men and what they mean for us, and I guess maybe how we connect with them in our daily lives. And so I hear this scripture, these words from Matthew chapter 2, as Herod calls to them. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied. Israel. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." So we hear this beginning part of this story that's fascinating to me. The wise men, the wise men who were stargazers, fortune tellers, soothsayers, whatever you want to say about who they were. But they had been on this long quest, this search for the Messiah. And they continued to search and continue to search, and they saw the star, as Matthew tells it. And so when they see the star, they come to Jerusalem and say to those who are there, "So, where is this one who's been born the King of the Jews? We saw his star." Now, immediately when the word King of the Jews is said by these Magi, Herod and all of his chief priests, as it says, and teachers of the law become nervous, because this term King of the Jews, of course, stirs in them the idea that they're going to lose their job and their place and their rule as it is. And so they call everyone together, and Herod says, "So, where's this Messiah supposed to be born?" And they recount what Micah has to say, the prophet Micah, that Bethlehem is the place, this small place where Jesus, the Messiah, is supposed to be born. And so Herod, in his devious nature, of course, calls the Magi, sends them and says, "Go find out and then come back to tell me so that I can go worship him too." Now we know that Herod had some devious thoughts in mind. His thoughts weren't to go worship the Messiah, but his thoughts were to do away with the Messiah. And so these two amazing stories take place. There is this miraculous story of the Messiah, Jesus, born in Bethlehem. And they make this journey, Mary and Joseph, and they are devoted servants of God. God has spoken to them. God chooses them, calls them out, to deliver this good news to the world. And then there's the wise men, the Magi, as Matthew calls them, who are complete outsiders, who really, prior to this, haven't been connected. God hasn't spoken to them in any way at all, but they are the ones who see the star in the east and they want to come and figure out what this is about, because for them this was the continuation of the story for them. And so in Mary and Joseph and in the three magi, it's interesting how heaven and earth meet. And they meet in Bethlehem. And they meet at the birth of the Messiah. For the wise men, there wasn't an angel, there wasn't an invitation from God, there wasn't anything else except the Magi came and they visit. And in the midst of that visit, of course, we've heard about, and you've heard me say it, you know, when they get all done, it's God who speaks to them and tells them to go home by a different route. It's interesting that in our lives and in the lives of these magi, as Matthew describes them, they come and they make their way there, and God speaks to them in the midst of their lives. And we don't hear about them except to say that you have to know that their lives have been changed. Now, for us, we want God to lead us, we want God to guide us, but sometimes, well, not sometimes, always, for God to lead us and guide us, we have to be active participants. We have to do our part. We have to be like the Magi and make the journey, do what it is that God calls us to do. We have to keep going and make our way and follow the star, if you will, and see what it is that God's calling us to, because for the wise men, God, the star, always points out exactly what we need and then sends us on our way and always go with us. Our longing, our need, the guides in our lives, they continue to call to us and continue to nurture us in our lives. Sometimes the best things in our lives come to us not in big flashy moments of God speaking to us, but in just a reminder that in us, the simple things in our lives reminds us that God's present with us in the very smallest details of our lives. And God calls us, and God moves us, and God nurtures us, and then God sends us. I think the wise men, I'm so enamored with them right now for some reason. Maybe it's because they didn't have all the knowledge about this Messiah. No angel spoke to them. No angel called to them in some powerful way. It was Herod who sent them. But in their journey, it was God who spoke to them in the end and changed their lives. And I think for us, as we head into a new year, and it's going to come to us, and we have to be prepared for what a new year looks like. I'd venture to guess, if you're like me, that you won't have some miraculous sign. Some angel's not going to come speak to you and say, Jim, here's what I want you to do. No, instead it's that small way that God leads through the lives of other people, through the gifts that we're given as we interact, with other people in all of our lives. And maybe that's just the best way for us. So the wise men, the gift that they give to us is that this invitation to go is a preview of God's plan for us to continue to move in our lives. And sometimes, it's the outsider, as the Magi were, who can help us in our lives find where God is at. And in my life, as I encounter many people, I'm reminded that it's often for me, sometimes people who are not really closely connected to me, who help me to figure out what's next in my life, and I give thanks for that. So, I hope that the wise men are an example for you and I as we live our lives to be on the journey, to take a chance and go and find what it is that God's leading us to. So I pray you have a great day, and pray that you'll know God's mercy and grace and love in your lives, and know of my love for all of you. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. Have a great day.